Yeah.
No, thanks.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're on Testament base,
Yeah.
towards the bottom. Today's daf is a confusing daf. I found it to be confusing. We'll see. Maybe we'll get it straight when we go through it together. And we're going now on the new topic over here. We had discussed before, last part was mostly about skila. Now we're talking about all four misas, and we bring that in the Mishnah, machlekes with the Rabbanan and Rab Shimon. Rabbanan say skila is more chamer than streifa, and hereg is more chamer than chenek. And Rab Shimon says streifa is more chamer than skila, and chenek is more chamer than hereg. And the Gemara, the first piece of the Gemara on the parak was talking about whether things, when the Mishnah says something, a list, is that in order or not. Okay, so the Mishnah would discuss that. But now we go back to what's the reason, the machlekes, what do the Rabbanan hold, what do the Rab Shimon hold, why do they hold it? So the Gemara says 3 lines from the bottom. Skila streifa chulu. Skila chamur mi streifa. Skila is more chamer than streifa. Why is skila more chamer than streifa? Shekeinet nol magadef ulevid avodas sklilim. Somebody is mevarach Hashem or somebody who is avodah avodah zara. He gets skila, so you see, it's a very, it's so my chamra, and why is it so? What's the chamra? What do you see that's so? Yeah, what do you see that's such a very chamer thing? Shekem pashik yadi ve'ikr. It's like one of the biggest taveras you can do. You're being kayf for vikr. You're pashik in the ikr of the Rebbeinu Shalom of Klal Yisrael, the Torah, whatever you're. This is big bad stuff. The Gemara says no. Adrabah streifa chamura. Maybe I'll tell you streifa is more chamer. Shekem nitnal baskayin shezinsa. A baskayin who's mazana. She's going to get streifa. My chumrah, why is that such a big deal? Where it says she's machal her father, she's mavaza, she's a marasa, so she's still what?
Apostles him.
The Gemara says the Gemara is going to talk about it later on. We'll see in two blats. Rashi brings down it's a big deal. Yeah, but Rashi also on Nun Aleph is mashma that this is when you do Machalel Zavia is Ben Adam Chaverai, and Mizana is Ben Adam Makayim. Mashenkin, if somebody is Ovid of Zara or Magadef, he's only doing Ben Adam Makayim. Right? So Gemara says maybe Streifa is more Chamer. Gemara says Kasav Rabbanan, the Rabbanan hold Nesua Yetzel Streifa V'Lo Yarusa. A Nesua of a Bas Kayin. So she's going to get Streifa. And that's more chamer than a nesua of Bas Yisrael. She's going to get chenek. So when you have a nesua Bas Yisrael and a nesua, let's start with the basics. Most people in the world are Bar Yisraelim, right? So Bas Yisrael, when she's the nesua, she's mazana, she gets chenek. Chenek we know is one of the minor misas, right? It's machlekes whether chenek is more than hereg or hereg is more than chenek. Rabbanan who are going in now, they hold the chenek is the least, right? But if she's a bas kayin in the suah, she's going to get streifa.
Right, much worse.
Okay, yeah. But in arusa, if she does in Mazana, which we said before is a very bad thing, Yisrael arusa, if she's a Yisrael, she's going to get skila. But arusa bas an arusa bas kayin is also going to get skila according to Rabbanan. So now you see the arusa bas Yisrael, nesua bas Yisrael bas kayin is more chamer than nesua bas Yisrael because the Torah says go from the kala, the kula dik chenek to the chumrah of streifa, from a bas Yisrael to a bas kayin nesua. So you see, since it says from by arusa bas kayin that she's going to get she's going to get
Top Rashi.
Yeah, so an arusa, both an arusa bas kayin and an arusa bas Yisrael and an arusa bas kayin will both get skila. You don't say she goes to the Barusa Bas Kohen goes to the more Chamer one, which is Streifa. She stays by Skila. You see from that Skila is more Chamer. Because if Streifa was more Chamer, just like we said that the Nesua Bas Yisrael goes up a step in Chomer when if she's a Bas Kohen, so too Arusa should go up a step when she's a Kohen. And if the step up would be Streifa, then Arusa Bas Kohen should get Streifa. Since they're both getting Skila, you see that the Skila is more Chamer than Streifa, so there's no higher step for her to go to. Let's see the words inside. Kasav Rabbanan, the Rabbanan hold Nesua Yaitz L'Streifa V'lei Arusa. The Nesua goes to Streifa. She goes up from Chenek to Streifa, Bas Kohen to Bas Yisrael to Bas Kohen, V'lei Arusa, but not an Arusa. Arusa will stay at the same level by Skila by both of them. With Afker Rachman al Arusa b'Skila, and since the Torah says that Arusa, even Arusa Bas Kohen is going to get Skila, Shema Mina Skila Chamor. So you see Skila is Chamor. So the bottom line is that the Rabbanim say we have a raya to tell you that a Nesua, that Skila is more Chamor than Shaifa. The other Gemara says Skila Chamor Misayef. Skila is more Chamor than Sayef, Hereg, with use a sword. Just like we said before, that Magadif, someone is Mavarach Hashem and Ovid Avetz Kachavim both get Skila. And then we said the Chumrah before, like we said that it's a Paishat Yad Ikar. So you see that's more Chamer than Sayef. In fact, the more Adrab Sayef Chamer. I'll tell you, Sayef is more Chamer Shkein in Anshir and Edachas. It's given to the Anshir and Edachas. The people in the Edachas, the whole city is served by the Zara. They get killed and they get Sayef. They get Tereg. So and how do you know that that's a big visa? My Chamra, what's the Chamra by them? Shkein and Main and Avad. They lose all their money. All their stuff gets destroyed. So the Gemara says. So maybe Saif is more Chamer than Skila. And Mara says, no, Amrit. Let's say like this. What is worse? Person who makes someone do an Avera, convince someone to do an Avera, the person who does the Avera. Yeah. So Chayte Machti worse or is Chayte worse? Chayte Machti is worse, right? So the Hava Eimer Koyach HaMadiach, the person who brings someone else to the Avera, that's worse. Vatanya, Madichi Irenidachas V'Skila. The people in the Ernidachas who did the Avera, they get Herod. But the people who caused the other people to do the Avera, they get Skila. So you see, Skila is more Chamer than Herod. Zak the Gemara, Skila Chamer mechenek. Skila is more Chamer from Chenek. Shkeinitin l'Megadef u'Levid Avetz Gechavim. Because it's more Chashav, the more Chamer it gets to Megadef and Avetz Gechavim. My Chamer Kedamar, and the Chamer is like we said before. The Gemara Adra Chenek Chamer, maybe Chenek is worse. Because somebody who hits his father and mother and draws blood, the halacha is that's a chiyuv misa. They have a chiyuv of Chenek. And my Chamra. So why is that so bad? Why is Makav Bima so bad? Because the person is mechuyev, the covet of a father and mother is like the chukish to the covet of the Rebbeinu Shalom. So you see, it's really bad. We said when you're being megadef and mavarach Hashem, that's a very bad thing, right? So this is the same in the same continuum. So the Gemara says. So the havmin of the Gemara is that maybe Sayef should be. Chenek should be more Chamer than Skila. The Gemara says with the Afker Achman Larusa Bas Yisrael, Mchan Nesua Bas Yisrael, the Chenek LeSkila. Since the Torah says an Arusa Bas Yisrael, it does not get chenek like a Nesua, which is more kal, right? Now Arusa is a worse avera because she's being, besides doing the Isra, she's also mechal elas asavia. She's an Isha already, but she's also mechal elas asavia. So the Torah says, what does a Arusa Bas Yisrael get? The same as a Nesua Bas Yisrael? No, Nesua Bas Yisrael gets chenek. But the Arusa gets Skila. Oh, why are we saying the Arusa gets Skila? Because Skila is more Chamer. So you see that Skila is more Chamer than Chenek. Okay, so we just established that Skila is more Chamer than Sreifa, Hereg, and Chenek. We didn't say among Sreifa, Hereg, and Chenek which one's more Chamer. But Skila is more Chamer than those other three. Now, Sreifa Chamer Misayef. Sreifa, the Gemara says, is Chamer than Sayef. Shekinitnul Bas Kohen Shezinsa, because Bas Kohen Shezinsa gets Sreifa. My Chumrah, what's the big deal with Savera? She came Mechalal Savia, she's Mechal her father, like the Gemara said before. In fact, the Gemara Adraba Saif Chamer. Maybe I'll tell you that Saif is more Chamer, she came in Lanshirani Dachas, because they get Mirani Dachas get Saif. my chumrash came my nava. They use their money. A lady who's mazana, an arusa that's mazana, is not using her money, right? Your Yoshim will still get her money, right? So you see that it's more chashav, more chamer. Where it says no, nemra aviyah b'skila, nemra aviyah b'streifa. You have a gzer shava. By skila it says by tzius anara by el pesach beisavia. That's by nara hamarasa, not a bas kayin. So it says beisavia. That's one place. And then it says masish kayin kisei chaliznas savia hi mechalalas es avia hi mechalalas. And that's the pasuk talking about a bas kayin, bas kayin shazitza, and there it's streifa. So we're comparing the misa of skila of naram rasa to a misa of streifa of naram rasa. Misa of skila of naram rasa is by a regular lady. Misa of streifa by naram rasa is by bas kayin. So ma aviyah ha'amar b'skila, skila chamura b'sayif, just like the aviyah where it says by skila, it's talking about skila is more chamur than sayif. Af aviyah amar because we said before that skila is more chamur than sayif. Af aviyah amar b'streifa, streifa chamur b'sayif. So too, when it says aviyah by streifa is more chamur than sayif, and we see therefore that the sayif is less than streifa. I just want to point out one thing over here. I said that when it says by first it says the first pasuk of aviyah is by a nara marasa that gets skila, and then it says the second pasuk is by I said a nara bas kayin shazinsa, and I started saying a nara, but then I changed it to bas kayin shazinsa, and she gets streifa because we said before according to Rabbanan a bas kayin shazinsa who's also an arusa will get skila. So and Rashi points out over here that the pasuk by bas kain shazinsa doesn't say if she's a arusa or an asua. It says ubas ish kain. It's going to come up again later in the Gemara. It says she's the daughter of kain. It doesn't say what kind of daughter, if she's married, an arusa or an asua, right? So it's a little, the pasuk is deliberately ambiguous, and it's going to come up later in the daf about the Joshua over here. Okay, so now we know that streifa is more chamer than sayif. What about chenek? That's the only one that's left. The streifa has to be chamer than two more, right? Two total, sayif and chenek. So we know it's more chamer than sayif. How do we know it's more chamer than chenek? Streifa chamer mechenek. Streifa is more chamer than chenek. Shkein nitl bas kain shazinsa, because the bas kain shazinsa gets streifa. My chamra kedar maran. We said the what's the chamra? Like we said, she's mechalalas asaviyah. Where it says Adrab, chenek chamra, I'll tell you chenek could be more chamra than shreifa. Shkein hook, shkein nitel l'makav v'imay. A makav v'imay gets chenek. Umay chamra shkein hook shkoid v'makav makayim, and a makav v'imay is like being paikim in the cover of the Rebbeinu Shalom.
No, Edom is bad. Like it's a problem. It's meaning that's chenek.
If there's Edom, no, yes, they Edom and Asra, so it's all the regular things, yeah. Where it says, since the Torah says that an Asua Bas Kayin gets more Chamer the Kamisa than an Asua Bas Yisrael, and she gets Streifa instead of Chenek, Shmaimina Streifa Chamura. So that very clearly shows us that Streifa is more Chamer, because when you go up a level, a Bas Kayin is held to a higher standard. Instead of getting Chenek, the lower Misa, she's going to get Streifa the higher Misa. So now we know that Streifa is more Chamer than, we know that Skila is more Chamer than the other three, and we know that Streifa is less Chamer than Skila, but it's more Chamer than Chenek and Herag. But in Chenek and Herag, we don't know which one is more Chamer. Where it says, Sayif Chamer Mechenek. This is the last step to understand the Rabbanan. Sayif is more Chamer than Chenek. Shkein nidin Anshir Nidachas, because Anshir Nidachas, what we said, they're going to get killed with a sword. And we know that's very chamer because their money gets destroyed, and in the case of chenek, they don't. In fact, the more Adrab, chenek chamer shkenin makav v'imay, umay chomer shkein hokash chulu. The Gemara says maybe chenek should be more chamer because chenek is by makav v'imay, which is hokash kvayd and makav ramakayim, so it's like they're being taken the cover of their Rebbeinu Shalom. Gemara says afilu hachi pashit yadi be'ekrad. No, l'maisa. If you have somebody who is doing avodah zarah by your nidachas, or somebody who is doing not covered kibbut ava'im, he hits his father and his mother, which is like
which is worse?
What? Right. The Gemara is saying that it's a continuum. We're saying that they're both the same thing essentially. What? Right? For somebody who is Ir Nidachas Avodah Zarah, somebody who hit his father and his mother is Paigim L'Kavna Makim, right? She can't. What?
It's much more public.
Yeah, but that's not even the point. The point we're saying an earlier point. You're right. But we're saying even less than that. If you say that somebody does actual Avodah Zarah versus somebody who does something that's like Avodah Zarah, right? Then for sure the person who did the actual Avodah Zarah is worse, right? So the person who did the actual Avodah Zarah by Yerni Dachas is worse than the person who did something that's compared to Avodah Zarah because he hit his parent, and being pagan in your parent is like pagan in the revenge. So doing the actual Avodah Zarah is worse than doing the thing that translates a couple of steps later to being something like not covered to the revenge. So that's where the Gemara comes out that of the last two, Hereg and Chenek, that Hereg is more Chamer than Chenek. Okay, now we know Pshat in the Rabbanan of our Mishnah. What we don't know is Pshat in Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon says that you Rabbanan said Skila is more Chamer than Shreifa? No, I say Shreifa is more Chamer than Skila. You Rabbanan said that Hereg is more Chamer than Chenek? No, I say Chenek is more Chamer than Hereg. And by the way, I didn't say this before, but that's what the Gemara was saying before. It's very negaya if somebody gets two misas, somebody does an avera, that you can't kill him twice, right? So which do you give him? Right? You give him the more chamer one. And the question between Rabban and Rab Shimon is which is more chamer. So if someone does two averas and one is chayiv chenek and one is chayiv streifa, everyone agrees.
Then they will die.
What?
And then they both die. The question, which is more chamer?
Yeah, but everyone agrees between, let's say, chenek and streifa, that streifa is more chamer. But between skila and streifa, or hereg and chenek, that's where you have the machlekes Rab Shimon and the Rabbanan. So now, what's Pshat in Rab Shimon? Rab Shimon and Rab Shimon says the following. We're going to see a lot of similar stuff, but it's going to be subtly different than the way we learned by the Rabbanan, which is why Rab Shimon comes out differently than the Rabbanan. Streifa chamur miskila. Rab Shimon says that streifa is more common than skila. Shkeinin el baskain shezinsa, because baskain shezinsa gets streifa. Umay chamra. What's the chamra? Shkein mechalelas asavia, because she's mechal her father. It's a terrible thing. Practical Gemara adra baskila chamura. Shkeinin el magadef levedevitzka chavim. No, I'll tell you, skila is more chamer, like the Rabbanan did, because you're being pashit yadei be'ikr by doing avodah zarah or mimegadef. Where it says, Rav Shimon latamei damar achas uruchus achas nasua yatzal l'sreifa. Rav Shimon says not like the Rabbanan. He says that a bas kayin shazinsa, when the pasuk says bas kayin shazinsa gets streifa, he holds that that's by arusa and a nasua. Rabbanan said that only in a nasua bas kayin gets streifa, but in arusa bas kayin gets skila. Rav Shimon holds both of them get streifa. And since you see that the Torah said a bas kayin, according to Rav Shimon, a bas Yisrael that's an arusas mazana is going to get skila. A bas kayin that's mazana, which is so much terribly worse, she's a bas kayin, mechalelas vesavia, right? She's going to get streifa. Shema minas streifa chamur. You see the Torah is considered streifa chamur, right? The Gemara is going to say on Amud Beis how Rav Shimon learns that arusa bas kayin also goes to streifa. Okay, but this makes sense, right? You understand why he's saying it's different? Because the Kav Chaimer that the Rabbanan said before, that you see this is more chamer than this, is not true anymore according to Rav Shimon, because you see bas kayin is supposed to get the worst einish than a bas Yisrael, is getting streifa instead of skila that the bas Yisrael gets. So you see that streifa must be worse. Okay. Now we know that streifa, according to Rav Shimon, is more chamer than skila, hereg, and chenek. But now, how do you know? I'm sorry. You know that the streifa is more chamer than skila. How do you know that streifa is more chamer than hereg and chenek? Where it says, streifa chamur michenek. Streifa is more chamer than chenek. Shkin din baskain shezinsa. My chamer kedamaran. Well, the baskain shezinsa gets chenek, gets streifa, and that's a chamer thing. So that's more chamer than chenek. In fact, more adra bechenek chamer. Say the chenek is more chamer. Shkin din l'makav v'imay. Makav and makaimay will get chenek. Why chamer shkin hukish kvaydim l'kavra makay. Where it says no. After Achman l'nasua bas kain, l'klam nasua bas Yisrael, mechanik l'streifa, shmam l'streifa chamur. Shimon says pashat azach. What's the halach by nasua bas Yisrael? She's going to get chenek. That's the halach by mazana. the lady who's in the Nesua is Mazana, Bas Yisrael, she's going to get Chenek. And what's the halacha by Nesua Bas Koyin, that's Mazana? She gets Streifa. Everyone's masking on that, right? So you see, since the Torah says that take a lady who did a lesser Avera because she's only Bas Yisrael, and that lady, if she was a Bas Koyin, she would get the more Chamer Avera, she gets Streifa instead of Chenek. You see very clearly that Streifa is more Chamer than Chenek. Okay? So now we know Streifa is more Chamer than Skila, and Streifa is more Chamer than Chenek. The Gemara continues, according to Rav Shimon, Streifa Chamor Misayif. How do you know that Streifa is more Chamer than Hereg? Shkeinin l'Bas Koyin Shezinsa. Amay Chamer Kedamar. Like we said until now, that the Bas Koyin Shezinsa is very Chamer. After Gemara Adrab Sayif Chamer Shkeinin l'Anshir Ani Dachas. Sayif is more Chamer because Anshir Ani Dachas get Sayif. Amay Chamer Shkeinin Moinu Av, and they lose all their money. The Gemara says Amrit. V'cheiza Koyach Meruba. What's worse? Koyach HaMadiach or Koyach HaNidach? The person who is Madiach, or the causes other people to Avera, or the person who gets who did the Avera. Hava Omer Koyach HaMadiach. I will say that the person who's Madiach does it. What?
What's the svara?
That the person who makes someone else do an Avera, right? Well, that's why he doesn't have a time. That's why the person who did the Avodah Zarah doesn't have a time to pater himself. But who's the worst over Avera? I could just do an Avera by myself, not bother anyone, and just do my Averas. And instead, I come to you, and to you, and to you, and I convince you guys also to do Averas. Terrible thing.
So
You shouldn't have listened. But myself, if I wouldn't have opened my mouth, you wouldn't have done it. Yeah, you know? It's still a terrible thing. It doesn't absolve the person who did that by the Zara from responsibility. But it does blame, it does add to the peckle of the person who convinced them. Right? Okay. So the Gemara says the Rabbi Shimon holds that the Madiach is worse. Now you have to have a little interjection over here. The Rashi says Rabbi Shimon holds, and we're going to talk about it later on. Later on in like 30 block. That you're Anshir Nidachas. We said until now that Anshir Nidachas get Sayif. Rabbi Shimon disagrees. He holds Anshir Nidachas get Chenek. Okay, so in the Rabbanon they hold Sayif. Rabbi Shimon holds Chenek. So he says like this: V'kal v'chaymer. Chenek shechamer misayif. Chenek is more chamer than sayif, right? Because we said that shreifa chamer michenek because the Torah, you see that the Torah says by Nesua Bas Koyin she gets shreifa when Nesua Bas Yisrael only gets chenek. So shreifa is more chamer than chenek, which is more chamer than sayif. Shreifa chamer mimenu. I sort of left out one tiny piece. Let's go back a tiny step. The Rab Shimon holds. The Gemara says that Gemara's shaila over here is Streifa versus Sayif, which is worse. And the Gemara says Streifa is Bas Koyin, Sayif is Anshir Nidachas. Right? The Gemara says no. Which is worse? The Koyach Madiach or the Koyach Nidach? And the Rab Shimon holds it makes sense and as far as the Koyach Madiach is worse. Rab Shimon holds that the Madiach of Yerin Nidachas gets Chenek. The Nidach, I think I said this piece wrong. The person who convinces the person to do the Aver, he gets Yerin Nidachas, he gets Chenek. The person who was convinced gets Hereg. So that's the piece that I missed. Because therefore you see immediately that Chenek is more Chamer than Hereg, right? Because the Madiach is getting Chenek. The Nidach, he gets a herek. So you see, and we know Madiach is a worse aver than Nidach. So now, Havaimer Koyach Madiach, the Kav Chaymer. Uma Chenek shechamer misayif. So now we know that Chenek is more chamer than Sayif because Madiach gets Chenek and the Nidach gets Sayif. Streifa chamur mimenu. So Streifa is more chamer than Chenek. We said that on Amar Aleph. Sayif hakal like kolshkin. So for sure, Sayif, which is kal, which is less than Chenek, for sure, Streifa is more chamer than it. So now we know that Streifa is more chamer than Skila, Herek, and Chenek. But now, what about Skila? What's Skila more chamer than? Where it says Skila chamor michenek. Skila is more chamer than Chenek. Shekenin al magadef levitzavim. it's a megadif and everything. It's chavim gets skila. Umay chamra kidamaron. It's being kaifer baker. Adrab chenek chamer shkein nidin l'makav v'imay and umay chamra shkein hukash chulu. The Gemara says that hukash kvaydim l'kavan amakayim. You could say that chenek is more chamer because it's a hukash to the lack of cover to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Gemara says no. The after Rachman la rusa bas Yisrael v'kanusu bas Yisrael mechenek l'skila. Since the Torah says that an arusa bas Yisrael is different than a nusu bas Yisrael. And Arusa Bas Yisrael doesn't get chenek. Arusa Bas Yisrael gets skila. And Nusuah Bas Yisrael gets chenek. So you see, since the Torah says that an Arusa Bas Yisrael gets a worse thing, not chenek, but gets skila, therefore Shma'ina skila chamura. So you see, skila is more chamer than chenek. Okay, so the Gemara says skila chamur misayef. Skila is more chamer than sayef. We just said that skila is more chamer than chenek. Now we're saying skila is more chamer than sayef. Because Magadif is going to get skila. And the chamer is kai for beker. Adrab sayef chamer shkinin anshir nidachas. Anshir nidachas, the people who did the avodah zarah, not the madichim, but the nidachim, they get sayef. My chamer shkinin navan, and they lose all their money. Amrit v'chiyez kayach muruba kayach hamadiach kayach hanidach. Which is worse, the madiach or the nidach? Havayim or kayach hamadiach? The person who caused the other people to do the avodah zarah is worse. The kavachaymer. And now we have a kavachaymer. Oma chenek shechamer misayef. Chenek is more chamer than sayef because the madiach gets chenek and the nidach gets sayef. And so chenek is more chamer. But still, we just said a few lines ago, skila chamura mimenu. Skila is more chamer than chenek. So sayef hakalash koshkin. So sayef, which is less than chenek, which we said because the nidach gets sayef and the madiach gets chenek. But koshkin, for sure, skila is worse than it. So it's more chamer than it. So now we know that skila is more chamer than sayef. And skila is more chamer than chenek. So now we know that according to Rav Shimon, the ranking is like this. We know Sreifa is more chamer than everything. We know skila is more chamer than herag and chenek. But what about herag and chenek themselves? Where it says chenek chamer misayef. Shkenin makav v'imay. Chenek is more chamer than sayef because makav v'imay get chenek. Umay chamra k'damaran. The chamra is because hukish koyd on the kavra makayim. Versus adrab sayef chamra shkenin lanshir nidachas. Sayef is chamra because the nidachas get sayef. My chamra shkenin my mavan and they lose no money. Amrit the Gemara says what's worse? Kayach hamadiach or kayach hanidach? Avan kayach hamadiach. The person who made the other people do the averas, he's worse than the person who got the avera. And V'tanya b'dichir nigudachas b'skila. We learn in a brayso that the Rabbanan hold b'dichir nigudachas get skila. Rab Shimon Omer b'chenek. Rab Shimon says chenek. Now we knew this already for the whole Amud till now because Rashi said it on the top. But this is brayso that Rashi got it from because this is the source of Rab Shimon. So you see, since when you have hereg and chenek, madichim get chenek. The nidachim get hereg. You see, chenek is more chamer than hereg. So therefore, Reb Shimon says, I know that Sreifa is most chamer, skila is second most, chenek is third most, and hereg is fourth most. According to Reb Shimon, hereg is the easiest misa, and Sreifa is the hardest misa.
Talk about confusing.
Yeah, it's confusing. No, I'm asking. This was definitely confusing that. Okay, now we continue. Rabbi Yochanan said over, he had a thing that he used to say. It sounds like it's a brayso or a mishnah he's quoting. Rashi says it's not. This is what he learned from his rabbein. He said the following. Nara Marasa Bas Kayin Shazinsa Beskila. If you have a Nara Marasa who is also a Bas Kayin, that she's Mazana, the Rabbanon hold, she gets skila. Rav Shimon Omer b'Sreifa. Rav Shimon says Sreifa. So the Nara Marasa is Mazana by herself. Everyone's masking that she gets skila. A Bas Kayin Shazinsa, let's say a Nesua, she gets Sreifa. What if she's both? She's a Bas Kayin Shazinsa and she's an Nara Marasa. The Rabbanon say she gets skila because that's the most chamer. Even though she's a Bas Kayin, and a Bas Kayin that's Nissus will get Sreifa. But still, if a person gets skila, a chiv skila and a chiv Sreifa, you go with the more chamer one. according to Rabbanan, the more chamer one is skila. So this one, Bas Kayin Shazitza, while she's in Arusa, will get skila. But Reb Shimon, I Reb Streifa. Reb Shimon says Streifa. Why? Because Streifa is more chamer according to him. So therefore, he's going to hold that this Bas Kayin who's an Arusa, even though if she was not a Bas Kayin, she would get skila. Now that she's a Bas Kayin,
without Arusa, he's the Mumacham.
No, without Arusa, if she was in a Suah and not a Bas Kayin, she would get Chenek.
Now she's a Bas Kayin, more Chamor.
That's Bas Kayin, that's more Chamor. And if she was in a Suah, she would get Streifa. But now when you add on that she was an Arusa, which is more Chamor, still according to Rav Shimon, she stays with Streifa. More chamer than Nesua. Arusa is worse. She's Mechalel Space Aviyah. Right? It's a bigger avla. I know.
Nesua is really married and fully married.
I know, but the way the Torah looks at it is that she's still living in her house. She's 12 and a half. She's living in her father's house, right? So what she's doing is affecting her whole family reputation and so on.
As opposed to be married, that's her problem.
As opposed to she's married, she's a little bit more separate, yeah. So the Gemara is saying that according to Rav Shimon, since she's chayiv both, she's got streifa als the Bas Kayin and skila als the Nara Marasa, you give her the worst one. And according to Rav Shimon, the worst one is streifa. Okay. Now, Zinsamei Aviha, what happens if when she was Mizana with her father? Okay? With her father, yes. That's a disgusting thing. That's what she did. And she was an Arusa. No,
regular.
Let's start with Arusa, right? Not a Kayan. Just a regular Bas Yisrael. So a lady who's Mazana with her father gets Reifa. So now you have the same situation. She's an Arusa, since she was Mazana, she gets Skila. She's a Mazana with her father, she gets Reifa. According to Rabbanan, Zinsamevia with Skila. Rabbanan she gets Skila because that's worse. But in that same case, Reb Shimon and Reb Streifa. Reb Shimon would say Streifa. Why Streifa? Because according to Reb Shimon, Streifa is worse than Skila. And she's chayiv both. She gets the worst one. Mike Mashmalan. Nesua Yaitz the Streifa Play Arusa. What's this telling us? According to Rabbanan, a Nesua gets Streifa, but not an Arusa. In other words, an Arusa is Mizana, whether she's a Bas Kayin, whether she's Bas Yisrael, whether she's Mizana with her father, whether she's Mizana with somebody else, she's always going to get Skila. And Arusa can never get Streifa. Okay? But Rab Shimon, Achas Arusa, Achas Nesua, Yaitzel Streifa. Whether she's a Arusa or whether she's a Nesua, she'll go to Streifa, because according to Rab Shimon, if she's a Bas Kayin, she gets Streifa automatically, and if she's an Arusa, who is right, I think we're going to say soon. Rab Shimon holds that Arusa will get Streifa by. Okay, the Gemara is going to explain. Reb Shimon will hold that Arusa also will go to Streifa, not Skila. So Reb Shimon, the Arusa will get Streifa. The time of Mai, and what's the reason? Mishum to Rabbanan Skila Chamura. According to Rabbanan, Skila is more Chamura. Reb Shimon Streifa Chamura, and Reb Shimon holds Streifa is more Chamura. And Nafkamina, the difference will be the Mishan is Chayiv Shtei Misas Bezdin. Somebody who's Chayiv 2 Misas Bezdin, Nidin B'Chavura, will get the more Chamura of the Misas. So that's the Nafkamina to Reb Shimon Rabbanan. Track the Gemara, my Reb Shimon. What's this Reb Shimon that tells us that a Bas Kayin that's Mizana gets, that an Arusa Bas Yisrael that's Mizana is getting Streifa. Okay? Rabbanan hold an Arusa Bas Yisrael that's Mizana gets Skila. Rab Shimon holds Arusa Bas Yisrael that's Mizana gets Streifa. How do you know this? Where it says, my Rab Shimon, the time you learned in the Brisa, Rab Shimon Aimer, Shnei Klalos Nemr of Bas Kayin. There are two klalos said by, two rules said by a Bas Kayin. The pasuk says, V'ish asher yinafesh eshes ish, asher yinafesh eshes reu. A person is mezana with an eshes ish, he's residing with his friend's wife. The man and the woman both get killed. Okay? Now, that's talking about chenek. By someone who's residing with chenek, right? It's a regular ishish. That's mizana, it's chenek. Now, that's talking about everyone. It's not machalik. It doesn't say what kind of woman it is. Talking about Bas Kayin, talking about Bas Yisrael. The pasuk doesn't make a differentiation. Mara says, wait a second, the Bas Kayin, Bas Yisrael, that pasuk is talking about Bas Kayin and not a Bas Yisrael? No. The pasuk is talking about Bas Yisrael also, and it doesn't say, it just says stam, a woman. Mara says, you're right, Ema Afa Bas Kayin. Even by Bas Kayin, the Torah said, both by is mashma, it's talking about both by Rusa and both by Nesua, because the pasuk doesn't differentiate. So basically, it's saying the pasuk is talking about whether it's a Rusa, whether it's Nesua, whether it's Bas Kayin, whether it's Bas Yisrael. That's how the pasuk would be without any modifier, because the pasuk doesn't say any specifics. It just says generally. Then V'Hoitza Kasam Nesua Miklal Nesua V'Arusa Miklal Arusa. Then the Torah went and said Nesua Bas Kayin is different than Nesua Bas Yisrael, and Arusa Bas Kayin is different than Arusa Bas Yisrael. Where does the Torah say this? Because the Torah says Bas Ish Kayin, and the Torah doesn't say differentiate whether she's an Arusa or a Nesua. Right? So the Torah is taking her out. So just like we have to say the minimum, right? Just like when the Torah says, well, a Nesua, if you're taking her out and Bas Kayin, Bas Yisrael gets chenek, Bas Yisrael gets streifa. Bas Yisrael gets chenek, Bas Kayin gets streifa. It's saying that Nesua, Bas Kayin is different than Nesua Bas Yisrael to be chomedik. So too, when the Torah says, well, let's take the Arusa Bas Kayin away from the general Arusa Bas Yisrael, also lahachmer, it's also be machmer, and therefore Reb Shimon holds that just like an Arusa, even though an Arusa Bas Yisrael gets skila, still an Arusa Bas Kayin will get streifa. Let me just make sure I said that right. Yeah. Now the Gemara sticks in a sort of a different, different cage over here. It's a little bit unrelated, a little bit related. Zaymei Nesua Bas Kayin b'chlal Zaymei Nesua Bas Yisrael. The Zaymim of a Nesua Bas Kayin, the halach is that Bas Kayin that's mizana, she's going to get streifa, right? So what about people who were going to set edus on her that she was mizana, and then they were muzam? Usually say kasher zamam, so they should get streifa also. There's a special pasuk. The pasuk says, he ba'eshti saref. Pasuk says, Bas Ish Kayin kisech lizas savia, he mechalelas ba'eshti saref. The Chazal learn that she gets streifa, but not the person who is by her, not the man, and also not the Zaymimim. Okay, so the Zaymimim won't get streifa.
No kasher.
What?
No kasher.
No kasher Zaymim. They get killed, but they won't get streifa. I think they get chenek, I think it says. So the Gemara says, Zaymei Nesua Bas Kayin b'chlal Zaymei Nesua Bas Yisrael. The Zaymimim of Nesua Bas Kayin are also included in the same category as Zaymei Nesua Bas Yisrael. Zaymei Arusa Bas Kayin b'chlal Zaymei Arusa Bas Yisrael. And the Zaymei of Arusa Bas Kayin is also in the same group as Zaymei Arusa Bas Yisrael. What does this mean? This means that Zaymei Nesua Bas Kayin gets chenek. They don't get streifa. So too, they're included in the Zaymei Nesua Bas Yisrael. That the Zaymei Nesua Bas Yisrael will also get chenek because the Nesua Bas Yisrael will get chenek. what the Gemara is saying over here is we have a drasha. I'm going to say it backwards because I think it'll explain it better. The Gemara is saying over here we have a drasha that says that zaymimim of Abbas Kayin, who is Bazana, will not get Sreifa. But what do they get? That's the Gemara's question over here. The Gemara is saying they're included in the same category as Zaymei Nesu Abbas Yisrael, which is getting somebody who is a Abbas Yisrael who's Mazana gets Chenek. Somebody who was a Zaymei on Abbas Yisrael to say that she was Mazana and she really wasn't, he's going to get Chenek. So Zaymei Nesu Abbas Kayin will be in the same category as Zaymei Nesu Abbas Yisrael. Just like Zaymei Nesu Abbas Yisrael gets Chenek, so too Zaymei Nesu Abbas Kayin will get Chenek. And Zaymei Arus Abbas Kayin B'chal Zaymei Arus Abbas Yisrael, and the Zaymei Arus Abbas Kayin will be included in Zaymei Arus Abbas Yisrael. Zaymei Arus Abbas Yisrael gets what? Gets Skila, right? Right? Arusa Bas Yisrael, someone says, two people come to Bezdin and say, so-and-so, the Arusa was Masana.
In her father's house.
In her father's house, right. So she gets Skila, right? But the Zaymim will get Skila also. There's no drasha to not come out. So therefore, a Zaymei Arusa Bas Kayin will be like the Zaymei Arusa Bas Yisrael and will get Skila. Because they're not getting Streifa. I think this is according to everybody. I think. Okay. I don't know if I trust me, but I think so. Okay. This is a confusing daf, and it's 9:30. Let's stop here. Bez Hashem, pick it up tomorrow.